Montreal, one of the great sporting cities of the world, has become synonymous with the Olympic movement. The Olympic Stadium, built for the 1976 Games, dominates the skyline. Now, 1 year before triathlon joins the Olympic family at Sydney 2000, the city plays host to the sport's last World Championships of the millennium. The countdown to a new era for triathlon is well underway, and today, when the world's best go to the line, all eyes will be on the sport's biggest prize. Hello and welcome to a packed and sun-baked Gilles Villeneuve Formula One race circuit here in Montreal, Canada. A unique setting for this final triathlon World Championships of the millennium. The championships have been to Canada just once before, in 1992 in Muskoka. But since then, the sport has grown beyond the dreams of even the most optimistic of those early triathlon pioneers. Today, 150 elite athletes line up for the 10th World Championships. It's a taste of what's to come at the sport's Olympic debut. So let's look back at the previous winners of the World Championships. Simon Lessing is defending champion in the men's event and remains the most consistent big event triathlete of his generation. In the women's event, it's been a story of overwhelming Australian domination. Joanne King lifted the title last year in Lausanne, but 4 previous Australian world champions are here.
The excitement is, everyone's here. It is a big race. It's the biggest race of the year. It's a huge field, great athletes. I mean, you have to get excited about it. And, it's a great course. It's going to be a little different to the Olympic course, but, it's going to be a fast race and it's going to be made for fast times.
Those fast times will be over a 1,500-metre swim, a 40-kilometre bike ride and a 10-kilometre run, making up the official Olympic distance. The women's race first, and we're expecting a tactical battle. This was the scene just before the race start. Australia's Loretta Harrop talking with teammate Nicole Hackett and the USA's Barb Lindquist about their plans for the swim. So the start list, look out for Loretta Harrop. She's won 4 World Cups coming into this competition, but former world champions Michaela Jones, Jackie Gallagher and Emma Carney all start as pre-race favourites. 61 athletes line the pontoon for this, the 1999 World Triathlon Championships, the biggest event of the year by far, with 25 of the world's top 30 competitors diving into the water, including the world's numbers 1, 2 and 3, Michaela Jones, Loretta Harrop and Jackie Gallagher. Well, I'm delighted to have joined myself, Nick Fellows, in the commentary box, 2 of the sport's most respected national coaches, from the Canadian team, Barry Shipley, and from the British team, Steve True. Now, Barry, you're a local to this competition, and this is quite a unique swim, run and bike sections for these World Championships.
Yeah, generally on this course, and we've had our national championships here in the past, it often comes down to the run, because this bike course, often athletes are able to come back to each other. Certainly very picturesque when you look at the swim. Very many people able to actually walk along and watch the swimmers.
Well, many of you may recognize this site as the 1976 Montreal Olympic Rowing Stadium. But the 3 swimmers that we're looking out for are those with an impeccable swim track record before taking up the sport of triathlon. Barb Lindquist is the one to watch out for from the United States of America, a silver medalist in the Pan Am Games in '87. Loretta Harrop, a Commonwealth Games trialist for Australia. And watch out for Nicole Hackett, a renowned swimmer who really does have the pace and zest to go with the swim specialists. And we're 7 minutes into the race, and already Nikki Hackett for Australia is taking them along. Steve, we're expecting very fast swim times, and this type of swim course really does suit the specialists.
Well, it's a very free, very open swim course, 1,500 metres, just 1 lap, and we really do have such excellent swimmers there. I think every athlete in the field knows how the swim will develop. They've seen Loretta Harrop, Nikki Hackett and Barb Lindquist going out so many times, even just this season, and the crucial factor, the key factor, will be who can stay with them on this swim to see if they can establish a gap.
And that gap is already starting to build. Now, Barry, we're looking for the likes of Michaela Jones, Emma Carney, defending champion Joanne King, who often find themselves trailing to the swim specialists. What's their plan in these circumstances?
Well, certainly they're going to have to hope that these athletes don't get that large of a gap out of the water, because really what's happening now, instead of athletes working by country, they're working by specialists. All the swim specialists are working together to help each other, and they'll worry about the run later on. So those runners that are in that second pack, they're going to hope that they don't get too far behind right off the bat.
Well, as we said earlier, it's just one lap and they're heading back home now. Nicole Hackett takes them along. Loretta Harrop is very close, as expected, Barb Lindquist. Also good to see there in the red of Switzerland, Magali Messmer is having a superb swim. The Swiss #1 and winner of the World Cup in Monaco. And also for Team USA, Jennifer Gutierrez is also looking quite strong. They're going along as expected at a very fast pace indeed. And here's a close-up of number 20, Nikki Hackett, twice a former junior world champion in 1997 and 98. And Barry, good to see a junior making her mark in the senior ranks in 99.
Well, we have seen it in the past, certainly when you took a look at athletes like Spencer Smith and others that came right out of juniors, right up to the top of the pack. But certainly you have to have a swim specialty to do that. Spencer, when his coming through as a junior, and now you can see Loretta Harrop and some of the other Australians coming through. Nicole Hackett was one of the top Aussies a few years ago.
Well, it's not going all Australians and America's way because the Europeans are battling and they're battling hard. That's Magali Messmer, who, Steve, had that impressive victory in Monaco and, of course, came into runner-up position in the European Champions. One of the few that can mix it with the Aussies here today.
I think Magali Messmer is having the swim of her life here. We know she's a good swimmer, but we are moving up just one standard from the World Cup events to the World Championship. If Messmer can stay here and just hold that position on the bike, she's going to be superb. But the person who's impressing me at the moment is Joelle Fransman from Germany. She's just a first-year junior. She was out for 3-4 months with injury early on this season, and yet she's staying now with the best swimmer triathletes in the world.
Well, leading is Nicole Hackett, then Loretta Harrop, 4 World Cup victories, and the winner in Lausanne as her preparation for these World Championships is tucked right in behind. Then the swim specialist from the USA, Barb Lindquist, is looking nice and comfortable, and stroke for stroke with her for Switzerland is Magali Messmer. Jennifer Gutierrez is also there, and also, as Steve True, our expert in the box, pointed out, the young German Joelle Fransman, who was also 3rd in that World Cup before these World Championships, looking very strong for Germany. Loretta Harrop, definitely the one to watch. Look at these impressive results, winning 2 openers on the World Cup, winning in the middle of the season in Hungary, and of course that World Cup prior to these championships in Lausanne, Switzerland, just a couple of weeks ago. Closing stages of the 1500 metre swim section in the 1999 World Championships, and already the tension is starting to build, and already the swim specialist showing her experience. It's Barb Lindquist that's first out the water. Nikki Hackett is 2nd, Loretta Harrop is 3rd. There is Fransman for Germany, 53 in 4th position, and that is a superb performance from the 21-year-old German. It's a sprint into the transition, and now, Barry, this is where you need a bit of room, because this is the tightest transition we've seen for a long time, as we see coming out of the water in 7th position for the USA, looks to be Joanna Ziege. It is Ziege that's 7th out of the water, but this is where there's going to be a lot of bumping and barging.
The athletes certainly have to be focused at this point, because you're coming in, your helmet can be knocked off, the stress is right there. You can see another athlete who may be getting on their bike and out just ahead of you, and so it is a very, very important time to be focused as well as moving quickly.
Well, away they go out of transition. This is the lead group. There's about 6 of them. They have a 30-second approximately advantage on these athletes, which will form the second group. Harter, Williamson, Bartholomew. Good to see the Japanese athletes Osoya and Nakanishi there, but away they go. Hackett and Harrop looking to force the pace. There is O'Harter now just looking for her bike, an indication just how cramped it is. 21 there for the United States of America is Suzanne Bartholomew, a good cyclist. And there you see Osoya looking to keep Japan in the chase. And they've got a lot of work to do as the leaders get up onto the Jacques Villeneuve Formula One motor racing track and already look to extend their lead. Now, Steve, this is the perfect group. 6 of them break away as we see the big guns coming in the 3rd group. We see Michaeli Jones, we see Emma Carney, the world's #1 and 4, finding themselves with a lot of work to do. And we pick number 3 there, Jackie Gallagher as well.
Well, Jackie Gallagher there, but just behind her, we mentioned Sian Bryce earlier on. She's the top Brit this year, and she's coming into form. Peak for this championship. There's the #1 athlete in the world over the last 9 years. Michaeli Jones leads out, but what a big pack we've got here.
Well, a big pack indeed and work to do. There's the double former world champion from 94 and 97, Emma Carney. She's worked in a small race as part of her preparation for these world championships. Many think she has a lot to do, and also she'll be cycling with Jackie Gallagher, another former world champion that finds themselves way down on this lead group. This group of 6 that has already decided to go it alone and try and put the pressure on the pre-race favourites that are behind them. And this is good news for Loretta Harrop, who really has got the perfect pack and, of course, the perfect size group to work with. Confirmation of the swim results with Barb Lindquist out of the water first. Nikki Hackett is there, Loretta Harrop, Magali Messmer and Joelle Fransman of Germany. Right from the start, the 6 athletes in the lead group had made their strategy clear. They would use the 40-kilometre bike stage to break the stronger runners. With Harrop urging the group to progressively faster lap times, the lead grew steadily. The big hitters, Jones, Carney and Gallagher, had fought their way back to form one main chase group. But Now they approach the most important phase of the race. They close the gap on Harrop, Hackett and the lead group. If they're going to break down that lead, they'll have to reverse this trend. The graphic showing just how effectively Harrop's group have been working on the first 4 laps. Lap 5, 46 minutes into the race, and the lead group still working incredibly well. They've been jockeying for position, with young Joelle Fransman having a lesson from some of the world's finest cyclists here, but the German clearly holding her own, and this group looking more and more effective, Barry. Already the story looks like it's been told.
Well, Nick, when you take a look here, the size of the group really is working very effectively. 5 to 6 athletes, terrific. You get 25 in the chase group. Some of those athletes aren't doing all of the work in that chase pack, and it starts to get frustrating on the front end. These girls know it's to their benefit to be very effective and work coordinated together.
Well, Susan Bartholomew of the United States of America takes the chase group along. Some of the finest 10,000 metre or 10K runners that you're likely to see in the world are amongst this group, including Jackie Gallagher, Emma Carney and Michaeli Jones, and the leaders will be aware of that. As Bob Lindquist of the United States of America takes them along, Magali Messmer is in second position, Joel Fransman for Germany is third, and they are working incredibly well. This is fine pack riding from this group of 6. They're drawing clear from the big guns in the pack behind. Things are looking good for Loretta Harrop, but Steve, one has to point out, if you're amongst a group like this, albeit on a Formula 1 racing track, the bends are still tight, and that chicane really quite precarious.
And all sorts of things can happen out there. With just 6 athletes, it's relatively easy. They know what's going on, they can call the moves right the way through. When you've got this huge pack chasing down, perhaps 4, 5, 6 athletes at the front, who's going to take the lead? They don't have a coherent system working there, and they are just losing seconds every single lap through.
Well, they're taking it in turns, Barry. What are the athletes doing here? Do they have a routine that they all practice? Do they communicate with each other? Or does it come natural after many, many hours of training on the bike?
No, I think when you take a look right here, you can see clearly that the Australians in that chase pack were really working very well together. Emma Carney was really pushing it, Jackie Gallagher, Michaeli Jones. They want to work because they know they've got to be within about a minute when they get off the bike, so it's to their benefit. Some of the other runners that are sitting at the back of that pack, they're not quite as strong as cyclists, so they're just going to wait for the ride and get out onto the run course.
Well, here's a classic example of the big chase pack behind having to slow down considerably around one of the tight bends. There's at least 35, possibly 40 competitors. We spot some of the British girls there, Sian Bryce and Julie Ricketts, but they've got a lot of work to do. It's 21 that's doing a lot of the work. That's Susan Bartholomew for the United States of America. She's been at the front for a number of laps now, and they're not making an impact on the leaders who are working so well. You see there, number 2, Loretta Harrop, moving aside to let Bob Lindquist in. Fransman there, the young German, having a real lesson in bike riding, and they rotate once again, and it's now Nicole Hackett at the lead, as the lead group really does start to pick up the pace, and it's looking a tough old run section for some of the specialists in this big chase pack. They do look to be riding very, very safely. Now, Michaeli Jones, as Barry Shipley, our expert in the box, has pointed out, knows that she's got to get going. She cannot let them get too far away. She knows that she has the skill in the run, but she only has so much to give over the final stage of this Women's World Championship Triathlon. Good to see Michaeli Jones picking up the fight and trying to catch that chase group, Barry.
Well, Michaeli Jones has excelled no matter what kind of course she raced on, what type of world championship she's at. She knows that she's now about a minute plus. They're getting information out there on the course. They know that with at least another 10 minutes on the bike, she can make a little bit of inroads into those swimmers.
Well, we pick up another long shot of the lead pack flying down the home straight of the Jacques Villeneuve Formula 1 track, and you can see the heat is rising, something that none of us expected. We expected a very cool day. Some of us were even expecting rain and adverse weather conditions, and that really is good news for some, but not such good news for others, Barry.
Certainly, when you take a look at this course, we had a few races in the past, and when it gets wet out here, athletes are really, as you see going around the corner, can be in a very precarious position. Because we have dry conditions today, they have a little bit better chance of staying on top of their bikes.
Well, this is the chase pack with Michaeli Jones, easily recognised there with the full wheel in the rear of the bike. And as you can see, there's Britain's Sian Bryce, all looking to try and pick up the pace. And once again, putting in a lot of the work. This is world rank number 6, Isabelle Mouton for France, one of the 2 Mouton sisters representing her country in this competition. And Mouton, who's got a good track record in World Championship competition, will look to pick up the pace. There's Emma Carney shaking her head. She knows she needs more. She knows she needs to keep going hard and hard to try and catch up that chase pack. A lot of experience. Carney, of course, coming back off injury, a former double world champion, and she knows that if she lets the leader of the lead group now, that is Loretta Harrop, get too far away, it will be an unsurmountable lead that even the 10K skills of Emma Carney will not be able to break down. The 1, 2 and 3 is Loretta Harrop, Nikki Hackett and Magali Messmer. These 6 continuing to go further and further ahead and really put the pressure on the closing section. And is it likely, Steve, we possibly see the 1999 world champion amongst these 6?
Well, I just have to say that it's just such a big gap now. Okay, the heat conditions are going to play a big part here, and they're going to be far more relevant on the run than they are on the cycle.
Well, we're approaching the end of lap 6, and it's good to see Britain's Sian Bryce finally taking this chase pack along. Sian, a fine 10,000 metre runner, but she too, like Michaeli Jones and Emma Carney, will not want to let this group get too far ahead. Again, they come in very fast, 40, 50 kilometres per hour on the bike. But look at this huge stream of cyclists. And of course, Barry, one starts to look ahead now to the transition. It's going to be so much easier for these 6 to hang up the bike, get the running shoes on escape, because behind them, 40 people into that tight transition will be chaos.
And we've seen that in past World Championships, that if athletes just go to sleep at the wheel for a little bit of time, when they're in that big pack and they come to the transition zone and maybe 15th or 16th place, often they run into problems getting into the transition zone and getting to the running shoes quickly. And those few seconds out of the transition zone can make all the difference if they get packed right away.
What a fantastic shot going into the hairpin bend there of Michaeli Jones and Suzanne Bartholomew, taking them along for the USA and Australia. Immediately out of the saddle, just about every one of these athletes is now starting to work it out for themselves, if not as a group, that this group is starting to get too far ahead. Lindqvist is now at the back, there's Messmer, but again they're very tightly bunched and they are working extremely effectively together. All of them good 10k runners, and this really is starting to be a very, very exciting battle going into the last couple of laps in this bike section before the 10,000 metre run. And there is one 10,000 metre runner to watch out for, Michaeli Jones, world #1 and former world champion in 1992 and in 1993. Silver medalist at Joanne King a year ago, but she's proved her form on the World Cup, winning in Sydney and in Kona prior to these World Championships. Well, back to the action in lap 7 of 9 in this 40-kilometre bike section, and the Australians trying their best with the British team, Sian Bryce, to pick up the pace. They're all getting information from coaches lining this Formula 1 circuit that they really do need to go. There's trouble there, and down goes the Russian. It's Nina Anisimova who's been taken off the bike. It looks to be one of the French cyclists, Nathalie Dumas, 72, that just clipped the front wheel, really taking quite a nasty crash. Well, unbeknown to the front runners of the chase pack, they carry on, and they carry on their challenge to the leaders. But Barry, this was a nasty fall.
There's no question about it. When you get a pack of that large number of athletes going out there, sometimes later in the course they start to lose their concentration, they're starting to get fatigued, and that clearly was a problem with the athlete ahead of her. But unfortunately, the Russian athlete is going to be out of this race.
Well, Steve, the athletes in front almost not knowing what's going on. A lucky escape there, but the leaders still continuing to pick up the pace, and Hackett and Frensman and Messmer all looking very strong and confident in the lead.
Well, this is where it starts now. The mind games begin here. There's just the 6 of them. Loretta Harrop has to be the one that they all fear, but they're not going to know what's happening with Joelle Fransman. I think they're going to be surprised that Messmer is up there and doing so well.
Well, let's take a look at the lead and how it's extended over those 9 laps, and an indication that it is far more efficient to work in that smaller group of 6 than the huge pack that follows the leaders. Coming in now off the Formula 1 track, down the pathway and into transition for the second and last time. It will be very close, but these girls will really appreciate the space and time that they will have as just 6 of them head into transition with that 10k run still to come. Michaeli Jones is trying to make a little breakaway, or certainly try and find some space, as there are 40 cyclists behind her who will all create what can only be described as a little amount of chaos in transition when they're all looking to hang up their bikes and take their running shoes. But it looks to be Hackett and Harrop who are first into transition, with Messmer just behind, and Lindqvist is also there. Fransman of Germany doing very well, and it's the young Joelle Fransman that takes them along. She's got the furthest to go, and of course the higher ranked athletes will be in the closer part. But we talk about it in every race, Barry. Speed of transition for these Sikhs is now absolutely vital.
Well, when you only have to fight for ground with 6 other athletes, it's going to make it a lot easier. When you come back in that next chase pack with about 35, it's going to be very, very difficult. And you can see Loretta Harrop has been perfectly tuned for this race. She's coming off a couple more victories late in the last few weeks and heading off onto the course. Those 6 women within 5 seconds. The first kilometer often tells a tale who wants to push the pace and who's really happy just to have been off the bike.
Well, we talk about an easy entrance and an easy, clean getaway. Now watch these pictures very carefully, because this will be incredibly difficult. And of course, there are athletes amongst that chase pack that have a lot of work to do. Look at this young, brave German girl, just 21 years of age, made her first World Cup appearance a couple of weeks ago in Lausanne to claim 3rd, and she's now mixing it with the world's best in the 1999 World Championships. The big guns come flying in. Michaeli Jones is there, Emma Carney is there, Jackie Gallagher is there, and of course the defending champion Joanne King. As we look in the small picture on the left of of your screens, and Loretta Harrop starts to make her mark and starts to stamp her authority in the early stages of the 10K run. It's a harder for Brazil that is the first in, but now may the scramble begin, because these runners and riders really do need to be away quickly if they are to challenge Loretta Harrop for the gold medal of these World Championships. Good to see Sawyer there for Japan, and also Sean Bryce of Britain is amongst them. There easily recognises Michaeli Jones, number one, hustling and bustling, trying to find room. Jackie Gallagher hooks up her bike just behind her, as does Emma Carney. But look at the bumping and barging. Steve, it's chaos in there as expected.
Well, it looked to me like Joanne King just got balked a little bit there. We can see her flying out in transition, but she's behind the other Australians now. And what a contrast to the way Joelle Fransman attacked her transition. I've watched the Germans in practice, and that was absolutely superb. First into transition, she stole another 5 seconds, and that's the reason why she's now up there with Loretta Harrop.
Well, let's take a look at the second stolen from the lead group to the chase pack. Fransman coming in with 1:18.10. That's the total for the swim and bike, with Ahata bringing in the chase pack at 1:19.32. We make that a 1:22 advantage for the leaders. It also took Loretta Harrop barely 3 minutes of the run to open a significant gap on the 5 other athletes who had ridden with her on the bike stage. Further back, the big chase group that had spent the day tailing Harrop was now breaking up and bearing down on the leaders. Australia's former world champion Jackie Gallagher, acknowledged as the best runner on the circuit, led the charge. On the second of 4 laps, Harrop had built up a lead of 30 seconds. He rejoined the race 5 kilometres into the run. Going to the end of lap 2 with a further 2 laps to be taken in, and Loretta Harrop has settled into a lovely rhythm. The stride is there. She really is working all alone, but working very well. Now just behind her, Jackie Gallagher is pouring on the pace and really is running with lightning in her feet. The question is, can she break down that lead and take Loretta Harrop? She's got a few other athletes to pick off, including Jennifer Gutierrez of the United States of America, who was looking good for silver, and now she finds herself being swallowed up by Jackie Gallagher. But of course the question is, does Gallagher have the speed to break down Loretta Harrop? As we can see here, Barry, Gutierrez now just looking a little tired as Harrop keeps the pace going and going.
Well, Loretta is very light on her feet, and late in the race, that's something that you want to see from your athlete. Jackie Gallagher, on the other hand, she was out for a good portion of the season with an injury. She had a fantastic race with a brilliant run in Corner Brook just a few weeks ago, so she's running very well on Canadian soil, and right now she is running her way through the swimmers in this group.
Well, she's picking off Barb Lindquist on your screens there. Just behind in the black outfit is Joelle Fransman of Germany. And also closing on young Joelle Fransman is the defending world champion Joanne King. Behind her, Michaeli Jones. Behind Michaeli Jones, Emma Carney. A trio of former world champions also looking to break down Loretta Harrop here. This will be a thrilling finish. Steve, the question is, does Harrop have the strength and pace to take this one all the way?
The thing with Harrop is that she's been fairly relaxed. She is in control. We knew she was going to call the race from the front, and she's aware that these runners are coming down on her. She'll also know exactly how much lead she's got going into this final 5 kilometres.
Nikki Hackett looks a little tired as Sean Bryce looks to have a little left in her legs. One of the chase back joining the leaders once again. Then we see Magli Mesmer clearly tiring for Switzerland, and just behind her, Ahata of Brazil. Loretta Harrop, all alone, knows that the likes of Jackie Gallagher, Emma Carney, Michaeli Jones are all upon her shoulders. She's got to keep this pace going. She's got to draw on that lead, and she really does need to dig in deep. 4 victories on the World Cup circuit. This could be the biggest moment of her career. The question is, can Jackie Gallagher track her down? This will go right to the wire, Barry, but she still has the comfort and strength in the legs. Clearly Gutierrez is tiring. Clearly Gallagher is going to go second, but will Gallagher go all the way and take her second world title?
Well, you certainly can't underestimate the brilliant running ability of Jackie Gallagher. She is one of the most tenacious runners on the field. You can see her right now, one by one. She's eating up the athletes. Jennifer Gutierrez is having an absolutely brilliant race. It is not that she's slowing down, but Jackie Gallagher is running through those other athletes.
Jackie Gallagher, who took the world title back in 1996. She also took top position in the Newfoundland World Cup to prepare for these World Championships. Sees off Jennifer Gutierrez of the United States of America, and the medal chances for Team USA are looking slimmer and slimmer as Joanne King, Michaeli Jones and Emma Carney also show good stride and good pace in the run. Britain Sean Bryce looks to go with the Australians as Jackie Gallagher now moves up into runner-up spot and now has her sights firmly set on Loretta Harrop. She's got a fair bit of work to do. You see some of the early leaders tiring now. Nicole Hackett there, Harter, Magali Messmer, all starting to feel the pace and the unexpected heat here in Montreal for these World Championships. Loretta Harrop, Jackie Gallagher, 1 and 2. Continuing to push the pace. Jackie Gallagher certainly the competitor with more strength in the legs. The question is, does she have enough time, enough kilometres to actually close in on Loretta Harrop? Loretta Harrop, one has to say, keeps the rhythm going. The cadence is good. She's looking strong. She looks to have enough just to maintain this pace and benefits from that early work. Here we clearly see that Gallagher is closing the gap, but she looks to have 1 lap too few to catch Loretta Harrop of Australia. Gallagher's fast start to the run stage had given her an unbridgeable lead over Carney and Jones, but Loretta Harrop, over a minute in front of Gallagher after the swim, was just too far ahead. Harrop had redefined triathlon racing this year by dominating the early swim stages and then maintaining her lead through the bike and run. She's the first triathlete of the modern era to put together such strong performances in all 3 disciplines. The applause from the crowd as Loretta Harrop adds the world title to what will more than likely be the World Cup title for this season. There's a superb battle going on behind as the crowd salute Loretta Harrop as the '99 world champion. 3 former world champions doing battle for the bronze medal, but Loretta Harrop has done superbly well to hold off Jackie Gallagher. You can see the pain now, the grimace starting to show on the face. The work is done. She has dominated in the swim, the bike and the run, and the reward is the 1999 World Triathlon Championships. What a run for Jackie Gallagher. She had another lap or 2 and she may have caught Loretta Harrop, and Gallagher will take the silver. Who's going to take the bronze? Joanne King, the defending champion, is out of the chase, and it's going to be a sprint for the line between Emma Carney and Michaeli Jones. Michaeli back off injury, and Michaeli Jones, well, she's had a great season so far. Michaeli Jones, who outsprinted Loretta Harrop to win Sydney, as Gallagher takes the applause. But let's look closely for this sprint between Carney and Jones to see who takes the bronze. No question, a superb performance from Gallagher as Carney digs in deep. Michaeli Jones doesn't look to have the speed. Carney now is pushing for the line. Michaeli Jones unbelievably is coming back and looking to pick up and pick her off just in the closing stages. They're both going to dive for the line. This is like a sprint, not a 10k run, and it's Carney. Just Carney gets it. Michaeli Jones is 4th and Joanne King is 5th, and that is the hardest medal Emma Carney's ever had to earn in her career. Congratulations to Joanne King. It's an Australian. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and we look to see which country can stop the Australian dominance, and we just see Britain's Sian Bright, 6th position. All credit to Sian. Steve, you must be delighted with this British performance.
Oh, that's fabulous for Sian. I mean, it was the focus for the year. The World Cups and even the European Championships have been important, but this is the one that counted, and she's proved she's a real player now on the world stage. Watch out for next year in Sydney.
There is no question of a doubt Team Australia has dominated this competition, but Loretta Harrop, well, a fitting world champion, and one can describe this surely as an emphatic victory. Confirmation of the Aussie dominance, Harrop from Gallagher, Carney, Michaeli Jones, Joanne King, and the first non-Australian, Britain's Sian Bright, in 6th spot.
I was pretty nervous at the start, but Nikki Hackett and myself got a really good swim start, and Nikki and I and Barb Lindquist from the USA had planned to work together, and we were talking and working well with a group of other girls out there, so I felt good. I heard we had about 1:30, and I knew that's all I needed on the run. The race had gone my way, and I was in the lead, so I knew I was dictating what was happening out there, and that's the way I like it.
Well, our 2 swim specialists congratulating each other at the finishing line. Nikki Hackett certainly contributed to that World Championship victory that Loretta Harrop just picked up today.
I went into the race thinking that I had to be within a minute of her to win, and that probably was about right. You know, it was 1:30, and I think she beat me by about 20 to 30 seconds. So, you know, the last lap, everyone's saying go for it, but I still had 30 seconds to do, and I knew I couldn't, and I was really feeling it. So I ran as hard as I could, and I did the best I could. So I'm happy with 2nd.
Montreal City is a blend of the old and the new, a theme much in evidence at the World Championships, with over 3,000 age group athletes taking part. The oldest competitors, Roman Jessic of Canada and James Ward of the USA, both in their 80s. But it was the Junior World Championships that many were watching as a pointer to 2000 and beyond. In the junior girls event, Britain's Annalisa Hurd confirmed her potential with a commanding victory over Switzerland's Nicola Spirig. It was the first time Britain had lifted the women's junior title. Last year, another British athlete, Tim Don, took the boys' junior championships. His title this year going to the latest in a long line of talented Australians, Courtney Atkinson. Both Atkinson and Annalisa Hurd will possibly focus their attentions on the 2004 Olympic Games as the press and the crowd were switched to the men's elite competition, with all eyes firmly focused on the British team and defending champion Simon Lessing up alongside Andrew Johns, both pre-race favourites for today's competition, with the 1997 world champion Chris McCormack having a lot to say about today's events.
There's no real dominant swimmers that have made any of the teams. There's no Ben Sansons, no Waltons, and so I think you'll see a bigger group of guys in the front pack. It's a little bit like Ishigaki, I guess. The first race there wasn't many of the super fish there, and a big group of us got away on the bike. And I can see the same thing happening here, but it tends to happen with the World Championships that everyone is prepared to work really hard on the bike, and a lot of gaps are closed. So don't be surprised if you have 50 or 60 guys getting off the bike together.
I mean, there's no real faces here that we don't normally see on the circuit. I mean, Simon's been doing a lot more races this year, so we get to see him a lot more often than what we normally would. And, you know, we've got pretty much everyone coming together. The only difference is the World Champs, it's the big event, and everyone likes to be, you know, probably an extra couple of % better than what they have been during the year. So I like to think I'm a lot better than that, than what I have been during the year. So I think it's sort of a good indication of how everyone is at their best. And the only thing about the World Championships is it's easy to get it wrong as well. You know, like you put all this preparation in this one day, and you can be a little bit off, or you can be spot on.
Today's start, this is made up of the world's top-ranked competitors. Hamish Carter, world #1. Watch out for McCormack, 97 world champion, and the defending champion Simon Lessing wears #7. An electric atmosphere hangs over the start of the men's world championship competition. This is an event that many have been waiting to see around the world. Defending champion Simon Lessing going for his 5th world title. And this, the 10th anniversary of World Championship Triathlon for the International Triathlon Union. Well, as expected, it will be a very bumpy start, and Steve, all eyes will be upon the swim specialists, but of course, one or two of them absent, including the likes of Bignet, who has not been selected for the French team.
I think we're going to see a very different scenario here. We've got used to seeing Craig Walton come out at the front, Benjamin Sanson from France, and Britain's Richard Stannard. And none of those three are racing here today. And really, there has been such a big gap in the previous World Cup events that I think we could well see a lot of the athletes stand together. Perhaps the favourite has to be Hamish Carter. He's been coming out 4th, 5th when all the big three swimmers have been there.
Well, you're absolutely right, because Hamish Carter has got off to a good early lead. Looking to go with him is one of the French swimmers, Laurent Jonsal. We see Shane Reed and Craig Watson there. But Hamish Carter, who is the world #1, Barry, hasn't had the best of preparations for this World Championship, but looks to be focused at the start of this one.
Well, Hamish, you know, when you have a year when you haven't had a lot of victories and you're still in the top 4 or 5 in the points for that year, that's an indication how internationally talented this man is. I know that he would love to finish the year off with a victory. He's never been able to get to the top of the podium at the World Championships, even though he's been the IOC President Cup winner. So I know he would love to finish this year off with a victory, particularly the year before the Olympic Games.
Well, there's a good shot of 47, Matt Reed. We move a little further down and we spot #7, Simon Lessing of Great Britain, the man with this unbelievable record, who some 7 years ago won his first world title here in Canada in 1992. He's taken 4 since then, and he looks to continue to rewrite the record books here in Montreal, going for his 5th World Championship title. Well, Lessing will not look to dominate the swim section. He'll look to stick with them, but he doesn't want to let them go too far ahead, and I'm sure many of the men have heard the story of the women's competition, and they will look to keep all of the leaders, including Hamish Carter in the swim, within their sights.
When you take a look, without the wetsuit today, some of the runners were depending on that wetsuit, and really, about a month or two ago, we would have said that it would have been a wetsuit swim here, but the weather has been so warm, 24 degrees, 25 degrees for the water temperature. I can't believe that at our nationals a few years back it was 16 degrees Celsius. So clearly the no wetsuits will hurt some of the runners who would have been depending on them today.
Doesn't seem to be hurting Hamish Carter at all. He continues to take them along and set quite a fierce early pace. Of course, Hamish Carter for New Zealand, who's come close to World Championship gold 2 times in his career to date. In 1993, he took the bronze medal. In 97, the silver medal. So Hamish Carter really focused to take the gold here in 1999. Shane Reed, his teammate, is tucked in right alongside him. So New Zealand currently lying first and second. But as the camera position just pulls open a little wider in the blue, easy recognisable is Laurent Jean-Salme of France. And of course, Jean-Salme picked up a personal best in Newfoundland by taking runner-up position there, and that really has given the Frenchman a newfound confidence, not only in the swim, but also in the bike and run sections. And from this camera angle, we now see the Frenchman just getting the advantage over Hamish Carter. They're nice and closely grouped together. You can see Simon Lessing in around about 7th or 8th position. He's the man to watch out for, and as expected, and as tipped by our experts here in the commentary box, nothing too dramatic, no early leaders, and of course, Barry, in complete contrast to that women's event.
When you take a look, when you take away the swim specialists, and all of these athletes are very, very fine swimmers, but there's nobody who really tries to make the break in this particular group. And the fact that we had a long 1,500-meter swim, we didn't have loops today, the athletes had a lot more time to settle into a position, because often on those shorter loops, they get into trouble at the first 200 or 300-meter mark when they go around the buoy, and that can really break them up. Today, these athletes are very, very closely bunched after about 5.5 minutes of this swim.
Well, also, Steve, it's worth pointing out that this rowing centre here really does make for quite a unique swim section. Just one lap. And, of course, many of the World Cups, we've had currents from rivers to deal with. We've had incredibly cold and then incredibly warm waters. It's safe to say that this is near perfect swim conditions.
Oh, it really is. I mean, it's not far off swimming in a 50-metre pool, is it? And I think the water temperature's just about that as well. One thing, though, with the swimmers so closely bunched together, we saw how difficult it was for the women in transition. We've got a lot more male athletes here, and I think we may well be seeing problems, or certainly some very, very tight conditions.
Well, Hamish Carter lies in 2nd position, and in the early stages your money must be with him. Twice on the podium in World Championships gone by, and the perfect preparation for these Worlds with that win in Hungary, round 7 of the World Cup Tour. Out of the water now come the men, and Laurent Jean-Salme has built himself up a comfortable lead to get into transition nice and early, and also without the bumping and barging of the masses behind him. Hamish Carter will be 2nd out of the water, and also good to see Alek Rukaseyev, the Russian now racing for the United States of America, a former 1989 Russian swim champion, 3rd out of the water. Shane Reed for New Zealand is also amongst them. Craig Watson for New Zealand is also amongst them. So Team New Zealand getting 3 into transition nice and early, and that is good news. Then come the masses behind them. We pick out Simon Lessing there, just at the back of the main group. He is very much in the chase. Rito Hug is also there for Switzerland. And we can also see Martin Kanavik of the Czech Republic. There is Hamish Carter, first in and looking to be first away. There is Simon Lessing, the defending world champion, number 7. Not too rushed, not too panicked, getting out and staying out of trouble. Also looking to go with him is Miles Stewart and Greg Bennett, both coming into transition together. 2 Australians have had a superb build-up to these World Championships, and definitely names to watch out for. Andrew Johns for Great Britain goes away, the man who won the World Cup prior to these World Championships in Lausanne, and really is brimming with confidence here in Montreal. Away they go. There'll be a small group that has the advantage over the main pack. The 1997 World Champion, Chris McCormack, he's also looking to get into the mix, a man who really does like to ride his bike with aggression and really will the others to go with him. So it's looking very busy out there, but Barry, one has the feeling that there is one big group about to form, because Carter and those first few who got away early just have around about a 20-second lead.
Well, the first 30 or 40 seconds of this race is going to be very, very important. If a pack can get away, they may be able to stay away for the entire race, but if they get caught up, we may be looking at a race with 40 or 50 athletes all on the very same chase pack.
Well, the likes of Chris McCormack, 45th out of the water, but still in with a chance of joining that big group that Barry Shipley was describing. As you can see, all heading on to the Jacques Villeneuve Formula One racetrack. They're very close indeed, and once they get into their rhythm and they get into their pace, we feel that there will be one big group to watch. Heading into lap 2, and Chris Hill takes them along this group. Now looking like they'll be joined by the huge pack just behind. Basically, these are the men who are out the water in the top 15, but most importantly, had that lucky escape from the chaotic transition area. But it's not to be a lead pack and a chase pack. It's more than likely, Barry, that this will become one huge group as the cyclists behind draw ever closer. There looks to be around about a 6 to 8 second gap.
But clearly in this lead pack right now, there's nobody who wants to be the general. Generally, you look at somebody like Greg Bennett, somebody who's going to push the pace, a Craig Walton who wants to go off the front. Bennett isn't in there right now, Craig Walton is not here, and so we've got some swimmers who right now are satisfied at working hard, but not that little bit of extra effort that may pay off to get a breakaway.
Well, no breakaway means one huge pack will form, and it's something that we had predicted and thought may come true during this competition. The smooth track of the Jacques Villeneuve circuit means high speeds and the opportunity for everybody to be pretty equal. The bike skills of some of the tight technical turns in a World Cup competitions gone by, not required here. But Barry, as we said with the women's competition, where we saw Animisova fall for Russia, with so many cyclists so tightly bunched up together on these turns, with this huge pack just a few moments away from forming, you really do have to be careful, particularly in the chicane.
There's no question. For me right now as a coach, it's one of the biggest concerns that I have looking out at my athletes in this course, because if one athlete makes an error, they may be going for some water, they may lose a little focus and concentration. A dozen athletes could go down and their entire season could be ended right here.
Well, Hamish Carter is still very much in the chase and chooses to stay at the front and possibly looking to stay out of trouble in these tight turns. It's now 2 or 3 seconds and we see them arriving. Here they come now, one big pack, and amongst that big pack is the likes of Greg Bennett, Miles Stewart, Brad Bevan. The might of Australia is now with the leaders once again. The British boys are there, including Simon Lessing and Andrew Johns. And one hates to say it, but this could become a 9-lap procession, albeit with some very skillful bike riding, and it'll come down to the 10K runners once again.
Well, one of the things some of the athletes in here have to make a choice. Do they want to try to burn some of the legs off these other athletes? Sometimes you can do that by putting in a little bit of a sprint, letting the pace come back down again, putting another sprint. We can see right there's Chris McCormack, and once again, as he showed in Newfoundland, he's probably going to go to the front of this field and want to try to push it and burn the legs of some of those other athletes.
Well, surely, Barry, one or two of the athletes, and it looks to be Kevin Carter for the United States of America, who's trying to make a breakaway. Now, he's probably not trying to make a breakaway with a bid to winning this competition, just to get a bit of space in this incredibly tight transition area. It really was quite chaotic in the swim, and one of the cyclists, or 2 or 3 of them, just trying to get to the front to avoid the bumping and barging going into that final run section.
But as you can see, a couple of the athletes now trying to get right up to the very front, because it's very, very important. Greg Bennett right there, he has shown. Chris McCormack, both of those guys are some of the best in the world when it comes to pushing the pace on the bike and then getting off onto the run. The biggest concern that they're going to have, however, if they can't get that breakaway, later on they may have a little extra fatigue in their legs when some of the athletes who stayed at the back of the pack may have fresher legs as they get out onto the run. But right now we're probably in excess of 50 athletes, as you can take a look back. Hamish Carter, also well known for pushing the pace, going to try to make a breakaway here over the next 5 laps.
Well, very interesting to note that it was Greg Bennett whose cycling skills put him in such a good position in Sydney, and then he made that superb breakaway. But they're jockeying for position, and one athlete who's not prepared to let them get away is Chris McCormack. He's renowned for his aggressive bike riding. He's had some firm words throughout the World Cup season, where he took top honours in Gamagori and 3rd in the Newfoundland event. And of course, McCormack, the 1997 world champion, a man never to be written off. Well, once again, the lead changes, and number 41 goes to the front. That's Hector Llanos of Spain, another established bike rider, renowned for doing a lot of the work. And Barry, it must be easy for some of the other athletes who are just hanging back now and taking it easier, while the likes of Llanos and the likes of McCormack are doing all the work at the front of the pack.
It really becomes a strategic place right now, because if we have a crash at some point over the next 3 or 4 laps, many of these athletes may be trapped on the wrong side of that lead group. So if you want to take a little bit of an easier ride at the back of the pack, very likely you may be risking going down, as we see almost 50 athletes making that corner. Some of these athletes, it's the first time they've been in a major race with that many other athletes close to them, and an error could certainly come as we have 4 more laps still to go here.
Well, Kevin Carter for the United States of America has decided to make a break. He's had enough. He's renowned for his kamikaze approach to his bike riding, but not renowned for his 10K running abilities. But good to see the American saying enough is enough. The 25-year-old from Colorado Springs, 15th in Kona, his best result, and Carter has said, I'm going to try and make this one and go it alone. But what's interesting to know, Barry, no one's going with him, so therefore they don't see him as a threat.
Well, certainly the athletes know by this point in the season who has the ability to run off the bike. If you see a Chris McCormack taking off the front, there's no way that a Simon Lessing is going to allow that to happen. They see some of the other athletes. Here we can see Carter now. He seems to have about a 15 to 20 second lead and continuing to build on it, but the other athletes are at least a minute better, and if they can keep within 30 to 40 seconds, they're probably not going to be worried. Carter looking over his shoulder to see if anybody's coming. Right there, Chris McCormack, He knows that he's not that far down, and they're well into the course right now. Brad Bevan starting to push the pace on the Australian side.
Well, this is a fantastic shot because there's Brad Bevan, Greg Welch and Chris McCormack all having a shot. Are you worried about the American going? No, we're not. They are in complete control here, and this is Team Australia once again, as we saw with the women's event, starting to dominate. There's 3 of them at the front. They're looking in complete control, and the communication, Barry, is very impressive.
Yes, when you get to this point in the race, you have to start to ask yourself the question, do you want to hold back and wait till the run, or do you want to start to push it late in the bike course?
Well, this graphic says that no one's going to push it. Consistency in all of the 9 laps in the men's bike ride. An average about 5 minutes 50 and 44 kilometers per hour. Well, Carter has made the clean getaway, and if nothing else, he'll get into transition first and have the chance to get the running shoes on, hook up or rack up the bike without this, the masses coming in. There's now over 60 cycle riders heading for the narrowest transition area we've seen all season on the World Cup, possibly the narrowest transition area ever in 10 years of World Championship triathlon, and this really will become a bun fight, and the experience really will come into play for some of the well-known triathletes in the final transition going into the 10k run. But hats off for Kevin Carter. He's made his name, got a bit of exposure for his sponsors. He comes into the transition first, and then they come flying in behind him. Andrew Johns has got a good position to get into his bike rack there. Also Jan Rahula spotted from the Czech Republic. But it's Kevin Carter, the American from Colorado Springs, who has got the opportunity to get in and out first, and in come the masses. This will be a very tight and tricky scenario.
Oh, this is truly panic right now. If you take a look, if you're in the middle of that, you've got to be concerned. I can see Miles Stewart coming in right there. There's Hamish Carter. Simon Lessing's in there, so all of the athletes, but this certainly looks like a subway, and it's morning traffic time right now. These athletes are trying to find their bikes, trying to find their shoes and get out there. You can see Hamish trying to run throughout the bikes to get out. Dimitri Gag right there is out. Chris McCormack, Lessing, Miles Stewart, Greg Bennett. So most of the major players are now have made their way and heading out of the transition zone, but it is very tight. Gilberto Gonzalez near at the pack. And right there, if you take a look, Oscar Galindez is running back and forth. He cannot find where his shoes are at.
It's like the rush hour trying to get onto the tube station. It really is incredible. Helmets strewn all over the place, and it really has been a fight of elbows. They're all escaping. There's Miles Stewart with Rito Hug of Switzerland trying to get away and trying to settle into their pace now. Let's just take a look at the confirmed fastest bike times. Oscar Galindez for Argentina, then Kevin Carter, actually the second fastest, although into transition first. And good to see the oldest man on the block, Rob Burrell, third quickest on the bike. Well, they're already settling into their stride. On the far left of your screens, we see Miles Stewart for Australia, and on the far right, the defending champion is Simon Lessing. Stewart there, number 11, settling into a good rhythm. Himself a former world champion, back in 1991. But don't write him off, he was a bronze medalist last year in Lausanne. Going with him just behind is Dimitri Gag, and also good to see Greg Welch there, also looking to stay in the mix. Switzerland in the chase with Rito Hug just behind Greg Welch. We're just trying to see who else is coming in a shot, making his mark, opening those long legs, that long stride pattern, and starting to make his mark nice and early, Barry. Simon Lessing, the defending champion.
Hamish Carter now into this pack. You can see beside him Chris Hill, and these athletes right away are going to start to have to ask themselves the question, is this pace too fast? Am I going out too hard? Because some of the athletes may just be caught up in the enthusiasm of the crowd and seeing that transition take off. The other side of the coin, if you don't go now, you're likely not going to have that ability to bridge back up later in the race. So many of these athletes right now are trying to get a sense of how far past that red line they're really going.
Well, they're all stride for stride, rounding the turn, and Simon Lessing has fought his way to the front. Dimitri Gag for Kazakhstan is now second. Tucked in behind him is Andrew Johns, winner of the last World Cup competition, coming into these Worlds, and then we see Miles Stewart just behind the second Brit in fourth position. Chris McCormack is there. They're all trying to stay with Lessing. They don't want him to go. Greg Welch looking a little tired, and Chris McCormack with that very sprightly stride pattern, trying to stay with the Brits, the Kazakhstan, and his fellow Australian Miles Stewart, who are starting to pull clear now. McCormack, the winner of this World Championship event back in 1997, and of course the great Greg Welch. It would be such a fairy tale come true if the man who won the world title in 1990 could take it again some 9 years on in 99. But for now, it's Lessing taking them along. Just on his shoulder is Andrew Johns, and we see the profile of Andrew Johns, the most consistent man on the ITU World Cup this season, with the most impressive first place in Lausanne as his preparation for these Worlds. By the second lap, a strong leading group had marked their authority on the run course. The defending world champion Simon Lessing forced a fast pace but failed to break any of this group. In a scenario unfamiliar to Lessing, he was matched stride for stride by Dimitri Garg, Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns. With no change to the pace or the leader, victory really could belong to anyone. Lessing continues to try and shake them off, but Dimitri Garg, Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns are sticking with him, and this is a scenario that he finds himself a little uncomfortable with, Barry.
But when you take a look, Simon Lessing's best races have always been when he's been able to break away and certainly control the pace over the last 2 or 3 kilometers. The fact that he's got these other athletes around him right now, he generally does not race the best when he cannot control the pace. The fact that he's got these other athletes right now must be very disconcerting when he still has another 4 kilometers to go and they are pushing the pace.
Well, he's splitting the pack up now and they're starting to spread apart. There are just 4 with him. Good to see number 21 still keeping in touch. That's Martin Konarvek of the Czech Republic, has raced very lightly this season and he's on track for a very good finish indeed. But the medals will come from those leading 4. We've got Andrew Johns, Simon Lessing, Dimitri Garg and Miles Stewart as Eastern European hopes are kept alive with Konarvek, and he is really pushing it out well.
Last year, Martin was 5th place, so you know that guy comes up big on very important races. But there's the runners in the field, that next bunch. Hamish Carter, Simon Whitfield from Canada, Hunter Kemper and Greg Welch, Chris McCormack. So some brilliant runners in that chase pack. If anybody fails here, they'll be coming up from behind.
Well, Lessing tries to drop the leaders once again and pick up the pace. You can see him putting the liquid on there. It's a lot hotter than many of us had expected for this September day here in Montreal. Dimitri Garg is there going, Miles Stewart is 3rd. As the race continued, only one man had the strength and pace to stay with Simon Lessing. Going into the last lap, Dimitri Garg and the defending champion would battle to the end. Well, we're reaching the closing stages of the 4th lap and it's down to these 2 men. It's Great Britain versus Kazakhstan, and Simon Lessing picks up the pace once again. And Barry, this looks to me Lessing's race. He looks to have the strength. He's striding out. Miles Stewart drops 3rd and Andrew Johns 4th.
There's no question. When you take a look, Simon Lessing knows the brilliant sprinting capacity of Miles Stewart. He does not want to be with him with 200 meters to go. Miles won the World Championship in 1991 by doing that, and you can see right here, Lessing now starting to put the hammer down. They're less than 500 meters from the finishing line. Miles Stewart far enough back that sprintability is not likely to be a factor.
Well, it's looking like Lessing has got his 5th world title, but here comes Garg. Goodness me, the Kazakhstan athlete is coming back at Simon Lessing. He's got a much quicker frequency in his stride pattern, and he's drawn clear. Lessing cannot believe it. Kazakhstan has a world champion. Dimitri Garg has the speed, has the strength. Lessing cannot answer. Lessing cannot go with him. And what a surprise. An amazing shock here in Montreal, because Dimitri Garg has taken the 1999 World Triathlon Championship. Lessing turns his head, hoping to hold on for silver. What a superbly timed run from Garg, who now can afford to slow right down into the line. 400 meters to go. He saw that Lessing was tiring, changed up a gear and takes gold. The first time ever an athlete from Asia has won a World Championship gold medal in triathlon. Garg is exhausted, but what a finish. Lessing cannot believe it in taking the silver, and Miles Stewart looks to hold on and bring the bronze for Australia. An amazing finish to this World Championship competition. How about that, Barry? We could not have predicted that finish.
You've got a 4-time world champion coming down to the finishing line. You've got to believe you put your money on him. But Dimitri Garg was the man today. Andrew Johns, the most consistent man of the year, coming in across the line in 4th. In 5th place right there, a brilliant job. Rita Hug from Switzerland and Simon Whitfield, Hunter Kemper from the United States, the 2 young guys coming through big.
Well, confirmation of the result. Dimitri Garg, the surprise winner here in Montreal. Lessing, the runner-up. Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns in 4th position. As pointed out by our expert in the box, a fantastic sprint finish for the lower places, with Simon Whitfield 7th for Canada, Hunter Kemper for the USA 8th.
Yeah, I think the race went pretty much as I thought it would. You know, it was pretty close on the swim. Everybody came out together, and then the bike was really just a question of going around. I knew on this type of course that nobody was going to get away. I knew it was going to come down to the run, so and obviously we took it out. Everybody took it out really fast, and one by one people started to fall off the pace. And I kept the pace quite hard all the way through. I was pretty much putting everyone through. At about the last turnaround, you know, I managed to make up a little bit of a lead, and I thought, right, that's it. I put in a bit of a spurt over the last kilometre, but Dimitri, you know, basically caught me up and sprinted past me in the end. There's nothing I could do about it.
Exhausted athletes now bringing this World Championship competition to a close. A gripping event full of surprise and determination in triathlon's 10th anniversary of World Championship events, as all of these athletes will go boldly forward to the 2000 Olympics. And perhaps the last word of the day from the surprise winner, Dimitri Gog.
I'm world champion, Kazakhstan.
Fantastic, Dimitri, congratulations. Well done.
For more information on today's event and the International Triathlon Union, visit our website on www.triathlon.worldsport.com.